it will be. Hey, Susan. Hey, Carla, how are you?
Hello. Fine.
Okay, I would like to call to order the Village of Lansing Planning Board meeting for Monday, October 14th, 2024, to order at 7:01 PM. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. I think everybody got a chance to look at them, but, and I know there were some comments back that got incorporated.
Was I here for,
I thought there was one that you weren't.
I know, I was gonna say, I don't think I was,
Me neither.
if you don't mind, so I know what to do.
Yeah.
Last time you were saying someone last time.
Maybe that,
Oh, I already
maybe
did
that
it?
was the one.
Oh, good, thank you.
9:24, Jim was not at.
Okay,
9:09,
everybody was here?
everybody was here, yes,
No, September 9th.
for September 9th.
No, Jim was not
No,
here,
that was the 24th.
No, the 24th, he
Jim
wasn't here.
but
9th he was.
oh, the next meeting I wrote.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, any amendments or comments on the September 9th minutes? Not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the September 9th minutes. Motion by Pat,
Second,
second by Lisa, all in favor.
Aye.
And the September 24th, September 24th minutes, any additional comments on those? I'll entertain a motion to approve the September 24th minutes.
I move to accept the 24th minutes,
Motion
please.
by Lisa, second by Lorraine, all in favor.
And one abstention.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the public comment period, opportunity for anyone in the public to bring something up that isn't already on the agenda for tonight.
Susan Ainsley, Board of Trustee Liaison.
Carla Marso, I'm here as an observer for the Community Party of the Village of Lansing.
And there is nobody else here tonight, so I will entertain a motion to close the public comment period. Motion by Pat,
Second,
second by Lisa, all in favor.
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is to continue the discussion for possible amendments to the tree conservation and planting law, section 145.27. I know at the last meeting, we obviously discussed it, went through a bunch of items on it. I know that Lisa and Lorraine had reached out to a couple folks, and after the meeting, Natalie incorporated all the changes that we discussed into a document and sent that back out, so you actually have a copy of that in front of you. There's a clean copy and there's a, the kind of red line copy, so. Did you hear back? It sounded like through some discussion.
Yes, I did a follow-up.
Oh, good, okay.
I reached out to David and to Dan, and David called me back on Friday, and so he asked, because it's a really busy time right now, he's happy to help us. He wants me to reach back out to him the week of Thanksgiving to set up an appointment for Lisa and I to go and see him early December. And I tried really hard to get a hold of Dan as a follow-up. See, Yamila, just so you know, Lisa and I emailed both of them with email. Gosh, when was that? When did we send that out?
a month ago, maybe?
Yeah. Anyway, so I was just following up, and I couldn't get a hold of him. I tried through all of the phone numbers, and anyway.
Okay,
Are you pretty tight with him?
I can text him.
It was,
It's one of those things, like, I bet you if I text him and said, oh, by the way, look at that email, he'll go back and.
I'm sure he's seen it, and it's a busy time, and
It's a busy time.
and we had asked for a response by mid-December, knowing that.
Oh, okay.
we said that in there, we know it's a very busy time, because it's ideal planting, as we learned. But we said, is it reasonable to think maybe by mid-December we could do something?
But it wouldn't hurt, because sometimes those messages, you never know, it could go to his spam folder or something, and so that's why,
Yeah,
thank you.
Okay, well, and assuming that we get this wrapped up, hopefully sooner rather than later, I think we all want to, and I know the trustees would love to see, what it is we're recommending.
Yep.
It's gonna take them, a couple meetings to do that anyway.
Yes.
And then also, as kind of discussed in the trustee meeting as part of the solar discussion, the appendix doesn't have to be.
Well, there's a little bit
I
of
thought that's what we
question.
said.
Determined.
Oh, okay.
So there was a conversation about,
the appendices in general that I had with NICOM, and the understanding that the village has had that they can be amended by resolution in lieu of local law. And a preliminary discussion that I had with Wade at NICOM was that that was not the case, but then when I drilled down in email a little bit, he said, oh, maybe in some circumstances you can. So we need to I need to delve into it a little bit deeper with NICOM, because there isn't any statutory guidance as to amending.
As usual.
So TBD, from what I can gather though, if it is setting guidelines and standards, so for example, there's an appendices, I believe in like subdivision for street design, which has like very specific requirements. And so things like that cannot be readily amended by a resolution, because that becomes like a moving target, not subject to public hearing. Makes sense. Things that are more suggestions and not binding appear maybe to be able to be changed by resolution, but I'm not ready to make that.
Okay, so
Statement, yeah.
TBD, huh?
Yeah.
Other than that, though, did folks get a chance to read over what was in here, the tree conservation, and see what you thought about Natalie capturing everything that we had talked about?
I also did go back and watch the video with Dan, just to kind of get some of the pieces that I know were discussed, but maybe we didn't recall. So like some of the conditions for why you made factors to consider on a particular parcel, those kind of came from Dan's language, or at least my interpretation
Oh,
of
yes,
them.
that's, I think, true.
Yeah. It was May. This was pulled from, some places I say this was pulled from a May discussion or something like that.
Oh, yeah, and then there was.
So Natalie, I know in the very beginning you had to add language about the importance of diversity.
Yeah.
And when I was going back through this, under 3 general conditions, number E, this was something that Lisa and I added in, right, Lisa?
E, establish and maintain appropriate diversity in species and age.
You want to move that piece maybe up there?
Well, we talked about maybe moving it to purpose, to be more specific, because I don't know.
I think
I'd
it's
keep it.
discussion of keeping that condition, but adding it to purpose to kind of explain the why
Yeah.
we're going to there, because it will make it seem less like the board is trying to micromanage everybody and more like explaining why we're having these types of requirements to make it easier for people to understand.
Because what we got rid of was the percentage must be of this
Yes.
and that, and it must be this, and understory of this and that. It just became, I mean, at some point, maybe, yeah, it really got a little much.
That's
And
administratively
And nor
burdensome
do I
for.
think we've been following it.
no, I don't think we can.
No.
We aren't staffed appropriately to
Yeah.
follow it.
Now, something like that could be an appendix, where we say, for those of you who would like more suggestions or more direct guidance,
Yeah.
aim for 25% of this, aim for that, and that could be an appendix.
And that's
More of
what
a
I think we should
non-binding
talk,
appendix.
you know, we'll get the stuff from Dan and from Dave, and then maybe we can do
Yeah.
percentages. But I think one of the things that we were gonna maybe put in the front, because I took it from the Cornell thing, but it's getting old, but it's still true, is that what they were talking about, though, was a community, kind of the whole thing, like, you want 5%, between 5%, 5 and 10% of one species only, so that the total area doesn't lose all of its trees. So maybe we want to, I don't know if we want to get into percentages, but I think we do need to tell that make people just think about the fact that what they said was diversity is an important key. I started to change it for us, and then, of course, now I don't remember what's theirs and what's mine, but diversity is an important key to a tree planting program. Overplanting of one species in an area can result in monocultures that encourage the buildup of insect populations and diseases that can destroy an entire planting, which I wasn't sure about that. And then it said, planting of any one species should be limited to between 5 and 10% of the total, and it said urban population. And I don't know how that works here. Or total plan, their individual plan, maybe it doesn't work either. And so I kind of got stuck there.
Right.
And then And then they go on to explain, consequently, if a disease should occur, obviously 90 to 95% wouldn't be, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't know if we wanted to get into that either, but just say it's, one of the things I did think was good to say, though, it's important to take into consideration the environmental variables at a potential planting site to be able to make appropriate tree selections. Because we also talked about grasses sometimes being an appropriate selection because of erosion and stuff. So I just didn't know quite how far we wanted to go with this in the purpose. Which is this kind of tidy little,
Yeah, I think you probably want to condense it down to the one
If you
line.
have like a 1 or 2 sentence.
I was actually going to say the opposite. I was like, the purpose is the one place where we can say a lot more if we need to, because the purpose is not creating some sort of specific thing that a person has to follow, right? So, if that purpose was you have to do X, Y, and Z, then you want to keep it compact and really clear, but just us talking about the reasons behind these things. And it also gives us more freedom, because in the future, we don't know what's going to happen in 15 years, right? In terms of like plant species, and it might be that we want to have this kind of guiding idea of what we're doing, so that we can say, well, this person brought this plan forward, even though it may not hit, 3C, it actually does still speak to the purpose of the law. So then we have some opportunity to kind of interpret later on.
well, we've eliminated a lot of the very specific kind of stuff, so maybe, a couple of lines would be okay.
Yeah,
Should I work on that with Lorraine? Okay, and send it out to everybody?
yeah.
Okay.
Let's see what else we come up with. I mean, if there's just.
Yeah,
a
I've
handful of
looked
things-
around at other kind of villagey places, and there's really just not much about it. This
Well,
was-
what I meant was if there's a lot of other things in here.
Oh, yeah, right.
Maybe, it
Yeah,
takes
do
us
it.
a little bit, but if there's that, and, a couple other small items, maybe we can get it by the next meeting.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
I just have a question.
What page are you
No
on?
lines, no, we don't want conifers in a straight line.
Page 2,
Removal,
no, minimum tree density,
okay, C, density, okay.
C1.
going down to D. It says for residential applicants, the total site area excludes the footprint of the dwelling. And then the next paragraph, or subparagraph, says for commercial, it also excludes the minimum required parking. What about the commercial structure?
This was pulled from the discussion in May, so these are things that, Jim, correct, that we have to make sure is correct in what everyone thought we were saying. I thought the conversation was not to exclude the structure, because then you're gonna end up with 0.
I'm sorry,
Most
did you
commercial
say
applicants.
include or exclude?
To not exclude, so to not exclude the structure, because then you're gonna end up with 0 in most places.
Yeah, a lot of them, it's, right, a lot of places, if you look around, it's all building and parking lot.
Yeah.
Like the mall,
Yeah,
for example.
yeah.
And we don't want to, yeah, we want to be sure.
Yeah, I saw also, and I
Yeah.
thought, well, I wasn't sure if also meant
Oh, does it,
stuff or also was sort of referring, but that a commercial structure is not a dwelling. So,
Because we subtract out in D, the main paragraph,
right,
the designated wetlands, utility strips, drainage easements, public right-of-ways, and
No.
buffer strips.
it makes sense now that you've
Yeah.
explained it.
okay,
I see what you're going.
Right.
Yeah. It's not the first, it's not the residential thing, it's the second also under commercial, that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That's what threw me.
Yeah, it does sort of,
We can amend.
just shall.
Sure.
Yeah, instead of also just shall.
Yeah, it does kind of make you pause when you read it. And then you're thinking, well,
Does
wait
it
a
make
minute.
sense to just take also out of both of them and just say shall?
No, but it's in addition to this stuff above, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. But, yeah, either take it away from both,
I
so
think
that,
having it be subparagraphs implies that it
Implies that, like-
is included in the main.
That's
main
right.
Ps and D
Yeah.
are included.
Yeah, because the two subparagraphs link to the main paragraph.
Right, so should we take it out of both places?
Or do we want to have, for clarity, but shall include the building area?
For
If that's what
commercial applicants, the total area shall also include,
No, also exclude the minimum required parking square footage, comma, while,
but,
but will still include whatever the appropriate language is to say that.
or for commercial applicants, the building area must be included, but,
Oh, there you go.
or something along those lines? Or is it we just making it complicated?
Sounds like we're making it complicated.
Yeah.
But is it
I mean, we
clear?
can play with it. I mean, I don't, let's work with it.
Density requirements of total site minus the area of any department, blah, blah. Well, if we were to put commercial first, would that make a difference?
Yes, I think that would make it a lot clearer.
Because then we're going to say also shall exclude the minimum required parking, and then we say for residential, the total site shall also exclude the square footage printing of any dwelling or outbuildings. And then you would understand that the buildings are included in the first one. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep, that's actually, that's a smart solution.
Flip them.
Yep.
There's that question up above B, where we were talking about the diameter breast height 4 inches or more.
Oh, yeah. Multi-trunks.
Yeah.
Yamila, that's yours. When I drive around and I see, down here in Oak Crest, there's this giant, I don't know what kind of, it's a maple of some sort, and it's got about 4 things, and the base is like this.
I was gonna say, the one at my house, which is beautiful red right now, is, yeah, it's gigantic.
I mean, yeah,
And I would think that would be something we
Only-
would want to,
Yeah. You know what, that would probably be a really good question for David or Dan, is to say, you know, if you've got a multi-stem, because what I don't know is if you've got a multi-stemmed tree, do you add up the diameter of, like, say if it's got 4
I would think,
stems?
because they come out at a base, sort of.
Right. But DBH is diameter at breast height, so it's always, you know, above, usually above, well, almost always above that base before it splits off. So I bet you it's a good question for Dan or David.
Okay.
About how those are measured.
And then major subdivision or cluster, oh.
oh, yeah, or cluster.
Let's go back to this beginning. So the beginning, we've got, all right, so we'll work on that. Okay, then we come to C, minimum, any major subdivision or action that requires the issuance.
So to Mike Scott's point with this, is that when we do a major subdivision, I believe your point, Mike, was that we may not have the information necessary to determine, like, it'll just be lots that we see,
Right.
not buildings. Where a cluster subdivision, we'll see the buildings and the lots more clearly.
You'll get your setbacks
Yeah.
and whatnot, I know that.
And the square footage of the, I mean, if we take into
At
account
least the buildable area.
the buildable area, and then if you want to subtract out square footage of buildings, do you have to show that on a cluster subdivision?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking to, are you looking to say any major subdivision, cluster subdivision, or action that requires a special permit? Is that what you're looking to say?
Sort of.
Well, cluster subdivision is considered major subdivision.
I thought last meeting you said that maybe it
I
didn't
did.
make sense
I
for
didn't make,
major.
if you do want to add that in there, because it all depends on how you look at
You
it.
can have a major without it being a cluster
some of
subdivision,
this,
but if it's a
I mean,
cluster, it's a major.
Going back to what you were talking about before, with D, with C1D, I mean, it may not be clear, no matter how you word it, it may not be clear to everyone. It may take them to ask me what's going on, okay, this, I mean, to make something, everybody deciphers everything.
Yeah, no, yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know, I don't think I answered your question, but
probably should include it.
Yeah, I'm fine to include a cluster subdivision, but in the last meeting, I thought Mike Scott's point was that we might not want this to apply to major subdivisions. Or maybe I misunderstood that.
No, I think that was the point, I mean,
Because with the major subdivision, I could have 10 acres, split it
Yeah.
into 5 acres, but who knows what's gonna be on those.
Exactly,
could be nothing.
that's, yeah, you just sell off lots to somebody else
Right.
at that point.
Whereas a cluster
And what are we gonna
subdivision,
do?
you have your setbacks, you pretty
Yeah.
much know what's going in each unit.
Exactly.
So you're saying get rid of major?
Get rid of major, include cluster, right? Cluster, you know what's gonna happen, you can say, okay, we know what you're doing, we know where you should be able to put trees, so we know how to work the calculations.
So
A major, just, there might be no building involved, so now somebody wants to subdivide, you know, divvy up some big piece of property, I don't know, maybe they need money for something, whatever, it doesn't matter. They aren't gonna do anything else with it, they're just gonna sell it off, and now
Yeah,
we're saying,
now
oh,
we don't
well,
even
you're
know
buying
what's
this,
gonna
and
happen. They
now
need
you
to-
have to put in $100,000 worth of trees or something like that, and so,
Yeah,
Because if you're selling,
Yep.
to Mike's point, if you're chunking this off to 10 different, you can't go putting trees someplace because
no, that's right.
where the houses are gonna
The
be.
only
Yeah.
thing we could do is,
Cluster, you know where the houses are gonna go.
right, okay.
so, does that make sense?
And then when they come back with specific plans, it kicks in because chances are there'll be some stuff.
I guess it depends, only if they need a
Or else
special,
there's
I
a
mean,
building
if
permit.
they, you know, if they have a 1 acre, you know, lot there, and they just wanna come in and get a building permit and put a house on it,
But
That's
if
fine.
someone buys a lot, a vacant lot, just a field,
Yeah.
and they wanna build on it,
They can do
the
it.
tree law doesn't.
right, it doesn't.
Doesn't
kick in anyway.
apply.
Right, yep.
But also, if that lot would already have to be vacant.
Yeah.
Before it's subdivided, because the number of trees taken out.
Right, we're not talking about them coming in and
Yeah.
like clear cutting or
Yeah,
taking
they
stuff
still
off,
wouldn't be
because
allowed
then
to
that
clear
does.
cut the lot, because that would still be subject to the tree law.
Yeah, I mean, if it was a 10, or if it was 4 acres of wooded area,
Yeah.
then I can rightfully say you can only take so much out. because
Right.
Other provisions that you made in the law.
So it seems safe to take out that.
Take out
And
major,
replace it
put
with
cluster.
cluster. Okay. So get rid of major and just say cluster.
Yeah,
Oh, and the DEC does set out how to measure a multi-stem trunk.
there you go.
Oh, good.
It has 3 different acceptable methods.
Of course, it does. Can't just be one, yeah.
We can simply say, you know, for multi-stem trees, follow New York State DEC recommendations or something.
Oh, there you go.
And then I feel like that's more than well covered.
So would you say,
Multi-trunk
instead of
trees.
C major subdivisions coming out?
And we'll put cluster subdivision in its place.
What did you say, Yumila? They,
Yeah, there's the New York State DEC has a tree diameter measurement.
Okay.
Actually, we can just simply say,
follow the DEC.
you can even say, any trees with a diameter breast height of 4 inches or more, or greater, comma, as determined following DEC regulations.
So they still measure multi-trunk trees, like in diameter breast height, they have a.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, it's not like it's its own special thing.
So-
Well, for these, it's not diameter breast height, it's this other calculation.
No, it's all DBH. It's just, it gets complex because you have to measure the DBH of each trunk. The DBH for the tree is found by taking the square root of the sum of all squared stem DBH.
That doesn't sound like you're saying it all.
So we were worried about the number of shrubs per tree.
Follow DEC.
I don't know how to do square roots.
I don't want to get into anything that complex.
Yeah,
Oh my
I did
God.
calculus again
I don't
someday.
think I would.
So they
All
start
right, so
throwing
what do we-
Minus 3,
formulas.
that's all I know.
So we're gonna just add per DEC regulations? Sort of. only
Yeah.
with the diameter,
As determined by
determined.
DEC regulations,
as determined
will be
by,
counted towards existing density.
Yeah.
So is the diameter breast height of 4 inches staying in?
Yes.
yes.
So at the end of greater, we'll put a comma and then some sort of language that refers to the DEC, New York DEC regulations, and then comma will be counted towards.
What if the DEC changes the regulations down the road?
Well, then it,
They must know
then we don't have to
Smarter
change
than
our
us.
law because it's just, or their regs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it.
That never happens, Jim.
And I don't foresee the DEC ever becoming, cut happy.
Yeah, probably not, that doesn't seem.
So I think we're pretty safe with that one.
Okay.
Okay.
For commercial, well, we already did that. And then the buffer strips, oh. Yeah, I don't. I
Right,
didn't read.
you're talking about E down there?
Oh, which one?
Where are we?
E, at the bottom of page 2, notwithstanding the requirements of this subsection, developers must still comply with Village Code Section 14524 buffer strips. And we said review.
Yeah, the buffer strips.
And I did not.
Buffer strips.
That plantings added in the buffer strip will count toward the minimum tree density. Came up a couple times.
Or just, there's just, oh, a special permit that does not require a change of permit will not be subject to this section. I know, I feel, but
Where are you
We'll
looking?
say it.
Oh,
I think commercial people better start ponying up some trees and green space around here
Yes.
in our parking lots, which I think are creating issues. All sorts of things, but that would be me.
That's,
I mean, every time I go down to the new Guthrie facility, their parking lot is wonderful.
It's very nice.
It's just wonderful. And they have quite a number, they have like 10 spots, 10, they have a good 10, 20, they have a good 50 spots there, easy. And it's just, and were you involved, you were with,
Guthrie, yeah.
and it's just so nice, and it's safe for walking and everything when you're there, and I just think we've got to start looking at that.
I agree.
So that a special permit that does not require a change in permit shall be residential special permit?
Your call. Come on. So for example, this would apply to,
Zach?
well, Zach, yeah, but I mean, commercial,
Oh,
Ole Ole.
Ole.
But we
Which-
didn't make them do anything anyway.
because they didn't own it.
They didn't own it.
Oh, that's right, so do we need to say ownership?
Well, that could be one of the many factors, including but not limited to, that you
Okay,
make for decreasing. We can add it as
Because
an
That might be
integrated
something,
factor.
that might actually be something good to add in there, right? Because everything else is, what do we
Ownership
put
of
in
the
there?
parcel.
Alternative energy sources. Well, I mean, actually, available open space on the
Yeah.
parcel for trees. I don't know if that
where
kind
what
of
page
gets
is
covered
that?
on the very first page at the bottom, under B, B1B.
Factors for
Factors and
reducing
circumstances.
payment.
So it would be, what,
I mean, we could add a, I don't know how to say it, like, not leasing versus ownership of the, oh, maybe.
less,
You can say status of ownership.
Yeah.
what?
There you go.
Just say status of ownership.
Because I'm just,
Yeah, because they.
it might be caught under available open space, but
But
maybe
may
not, yeah.
Yeah.
Because what if they had a big, nice green space there, that'd be nice.
Status of
But yeah,
ownership.
yeah.
So tell me, what are you doing with this, with I, with no change in the footprint? Is this for residential and?
That's what they're deciding.
That's,
Okay, because
Yeah.
most of your special permits don't involve much of a change in the buildings. Because it's, in commercial, I'm finding that most of your special permits are, you're changing the use, which changes your parking. And that's why you require a special permit, but they're reusing the actual building.
yeah, but I mean, like, if you look at Taco Bell, that building's gone.
So, yeah, it's-
If you look at, if that project ever comes through at Transact, they're definitely changing, well, what they had proposed to us, they had changed the footprint of the building, because they wanted to add on around it. But is that
You've
wasn't.
had places like the vet clinic.
Yeah.
You've had places
Med.
like
Piga Med, yeah.
Bauman's. I mean,
Well, they.
Well, they're gonna put stuff
outbuilding.
outside, though, so.
yeah, technically.
Well, but Bowman is purchasing, right? They're gonna own their properties.
They were planning to purchase, yeah. I don't know if.
I think that was, yeah,
wasn't
that
like a
was the plan, they wanted to
slightly
purchase
worded
that entire end of it, and
Right, so is that different? Because then they would have.
they would own it, and then maybe
Then
would
it's
say,
different, yeah,
you
like
were
that
the
is,
owner
again,
now.
it's the status of ownership.
I would say that that encompasses it well, because then, you know, that all kind of like spirals after that, especially when you talk about, you know, if you talk about, okay, let's not picture, if you talk about the mall, then they've got like, you know, the maintenance agreement and who owns what parking lots, and I think stuff really spirals there, versus like, yeah, if you look at like Northeast Pediatrics, that's a kind of self-contained commercial property with their own parking lot, that one's a lot easier, the mall
And then
throws
the
all
Ole
kinds of
Ole,
other
he
things.
doesn't own,
Right.
veterans
Yep,
didn't own.
doesn't
Yeah.
own, I think that throws, so maybe just status of.
Yeah, I think that.
I think
Ownership.
that's good.
Well, I think between that and the available open space on the parcel for trees, those two things, I think, cover,
Yeah,
Yep,
cover it.
I think that's good.
And it says such factors not limited to, so.
Yeah, we can always add.
Okay,
So then what did we decide on
so then we would just leave as is?
Well, unless, do you want it to apply to
Residential?
commercial or residential, or both? I'm
I would
assuming
just-
you
I was
want to
thinking both.
capture.
Oh, I don't know, go ahead, what were you about?
Well,
your-
Lisa seems to want it to
Only
only
for
be
commercial.
residential.
Well, I
Or only
just,
residential, rather.
I just don't want homeowners to get, you know, if they're just gonna do a home occupation or something, I don't want them to have to deal with this.
But that doesn't, well, it depends, it could change this.
Especially if it doesn't require a change in footprint, it shall not be subject to the requirements of this
So
section.
if they were just gonna do home occupation, it wouldn't apply because that doesn't
No,
require change.
but if they add another
If they
building,
add
it
another
might,
building
it
on it,
will.
could.
Yeah, right, but that's fine.
If you put residential, then you're making residential exempt. If you leave it in there, then you always have the ability to waive in certain, for commercial, you always have the ability to waive certain conditions, correct? You always have the ability to waive the trees. So if you would like to have some trees for there,
And then you could, but this doesn't,
I'm saying just have this just for residential.
so make it just for residential?
Residential, so commercial, it will apply, and if it
That's what
doesn't
I'm
seem
thinking.
logical,
Then we don't
like
need to.
Olay, then you waive.
then we have,
That's I guess what I'm thinking.
I think that makes
Some
sense.
room to wiggle, and it's not just like, boom, cut and dry,
Yeah,
it shall be.
Yeah, I think when you explain it that way, that makes sense.
so a residential special permit?
Right. Is that the right way to
A
word that?
special permit for, yeah, no, exactly.
A
Residential zone.
residential property, or, I don't know.
Or a special permit for residential property?
However-
Which is
however-
better?
Special permit.
Whatever the right, because we don't have a checkbox on our special permit that says this is for, this is residential,
What
this
zone
is commercial.
you're in.
Is it just a zone?
I would say it's just a zone. Residential zones?
So a special permit in a residential district?
That does not
Do we have,
require a change in footprint shall not be subject?
What about a special permit involving residential property?
that's what I thought too, sort of,
I like that
That's
better.
fine.
Okay.
yeah.
I like that.
Or is that,
Special permit
or
involving,
is that too vague?
no, involving is vague, I think.
what?
I think involving might be too vague,
Just. a
because, I mean, I can see a place where you've got some, if
Oh, yeah,
a larger
you've got
developer, you might have both.
Just a special permit
residential
for
district?
a primary resident?
Strictly residential?
Strictly residential property, that way mixed use, they would have to.
A special permit for strictly
Residential property.
residential property.
Or wholly residential?
I think I'll let the lawyers
I
do
think,
this.
I was gonna say, I think
I'm
Natalie
not-
has enough
I'll have
ideas to
to-
figure out how
yeah.
to.
Yeah.
If we can come up with something a little less awkward, this is kind of one of those.
Well,
where I'm
That's why,
thinking, the red
that's why,
tag comes
I
out
hate to bring it
from
up,
when
but
I
a
was in
residential
college.
special permit.
That's why I said a
Yeah,
resident,
exactly, yeah.
that's what I said out the outset, I guess it is.
No, it's one of those things, Mike, you know, when you say that, we all know what it means.
Yeah.
Reasonable people do, but some developer wants to nitpick, they latch on to it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and we have to write for the nitpicker.
I don't
Yep.
like strictly,
you don't like strictly.
just doesn't feel quite right.
No, I'm just making fun.
That's strike, no, I don't care,
What's next?
as long as it works.
Or we don't have to specify, we can just say may not be subject.
Applicants previously.
In this?
A special permit for a residential special permit application?
Well, I'm just saying, under C1D, we say for residential applicants and then for commercial applicants.
Oh, this one for residential,
Yeah.
yeah. So we say
then you
for
say
residential
residential
applicants,
Just to stay consistent?
that would work. So you say for residential applicants, a special
special
permit
permit.
that does not require?
Yeah, that works. Hopefully.
What about the point somebody made that where there's mixed-use property or something? Then what?
It should.
Well, then they wouldn't be a residential applicant.
Commercial applicant.
Yeah.
If it's mixed use, it'd be commercial.
Yeah. Assuming that the other, yeah, it's either residential or commercial, or it's mixed, and then it
If
becomes
it's mixed, it's
commercial.
commercial.
If it has any there wouldn't be a residential application then, would it?
No, it'd be commercial, because it's mixed.
I think it's
Just
okay.
by district.
We don't have mixed use in our,
No, I know, but if we did it like, by like low density residential.
Medium.
oh, you mean you put, actually list the residential, the LDR?
Yeah.
I would be really hesitant to do that, just because I know
What if we
we're going to be looking at some of those.
Because as we know, our poor code
Yeah.
forgot
Right.
CMT.
If we were gonna say all residential
For residential
zones or
applicants.
whatever, I
Yeah,
would be
then
more
I
apt for that, as opposed to calling specific ones out.
Yeah,
I'd like-
I like for residential
I liked
applicants.
it too.
Okay.
It's
I think,
consistent with what, it's consistent with the start of it also.
and yeah, and it just works. Residential
Let's try
applicants.
that.
We'll see, yeah,
See
we'll
what that-
A
play with
special
it.
permit that does not require should not be subject to their price.
What do you think, Mike? 6 here, half dozen the other?
Strictly in that.
You know, it's like somebody always has an argument for something.
Of course.
Of course,
So you do the best you can.
That's why we got all these lawyers around here.
yeah.
So these arguments don't come up.
They can just refer back to this video to understand legislative intent.
Yeah.
Come on,
We
we're
could put
creating a
date
record
We
here.
could actually put C Zoom
Yeah.
meeting of so-and-so. For explanation.
Okay.
Okay, what's next?
I wish that there's Saturday Night Live sketches here all over
For
the place.
sure.
Oh, yeah.
Street trees?
Yes.
Well, there are changes that just don't show.
Yeah,
up
they're
in the
not
clean
on- they're not
version.
on here.
The
That's
red
why I was
line
going down
is in
both of
there,
them.
too.
If you look at,
I should be looking at the one.
if you look on page 3, 2F, plantings maybe, or, actually, under D, arborist or registered landscape architect is what we kind
Oh,
of decided,
gosh.
we would use that language everywhere. But then F, plantings may be implemented in the phases, in which case the planting plan must include a timeline for each phase, we talked about that at the last meeting.
I just kind of played with the wording. It was, I thought, kind of clunky how.
Yeah,
All right.
plantings may be implemented in phases, in which case the planting plan must include a timeline for each phase. If that makes sense.
You don't. oh,
Is there
Do you even
anything,
need to say in which
You know what?
case?
ISA certified arborist, registered landscape architect, do we want to have anything that says, you know, like, for instance, if someone goes to Cayuga Landscape, and they are having somebody who's a, you know, a landscape designer do it, not a certified architect, but that's still considered, you know, I would still consider that going to a professional for a professional design.
Discussion in
Yeah.
May
Yeah,
was that
we
this was like
talked
a
about this.
licensed or registered
Yeah,
professional versus anyone could call themselves a landscape designer, and then we're kind of like it'd be great if we
Yeah.
all know they're gonna go to Dave or Dan, but.
Sure, yeah, great.
They're not, yeah.
we want to make sure that, yeah, just through here,
Chances
making
are-
sure that they were going to,
yeah, but also, you're right, chances are any of the better nurseries will have
Well,
someone on staff
I was gonna
who
say, or
is an
You
ISA,
guys will have the sense to go to the local,
yeah,
Dan or David,
yeah.
for him.
Just because of past projects where we say plantings may be implemented, and obviously under, the tree planting plan has to be approved by us. And then we say, hey, you can do it in phases. If you're doing it in phases, there has to be a timeline for each phase.
Yes.
Should there be something in there about, again, I know that we have to approve it, but about the actual, not so much the timeline is, you can't do this over 5 years, like, we're really hoping that this is done in
In a
1 or 2
timely
or
fashion.
3 or 4, something, I don't know, that seems like it's heavy-handed, I'm also, arguing with myself here, what if something happens at the mall and they say, yeah, we'll do all this beautiful stuff you want, it's gonna take us a decade.
No,
Okay, maybe,
okay, so,
should there be some limit on that,
No.
yeah, you can do it in phases, or is the fact that we have to approve it enough?
over like 2 years.
Well, okay,
If they come in the middle of winter,
it shouldn't matter. If they come in the middle of, if they come for approval, really the only time you can't plant is from like December 15th to like February 15th.
anymore.
It wasn't just, though, the environment, it also had to do with what if now they're doing a multi-phase approach to the construction, we don't want them putting stuff in that they're gonna bulldoze over, so it's contingent on things like that, too.
Right.
Right, yeah, if they're just gonna have a building up, they don't, yeah, that's not an environmental thing, that's great, you can plant everything next spring, have
So,
fun.
but let's think about Lansing Heights over here. Well, whatever they're called, the Bonnewell thing. Lansing
It is Lansing Heights.
Lansing Trails,
That was before my time.
well, that's what they call it, Lansing Heights
Lansing
now,
Trails.
right, the newer stuff?
Oh,
The
up,
Heights of Lansing?
yeah, Heights.
Oh, the Heights of
Up top,
Lansing,
yeah.
excuse me.
It's higher.
It is, another 5 feet higher. That's been taking, what, 25 years?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, but now they're moving right along.
yeah, there.
they sure are.
I mean,
There
it's
aren't many
what we also
trees.
did with Eric, he had a phased planting plan.
Definitely wasn't what I
That
was
was-
referring to when I said.
Phase 1, phase 2,
Yeah.
because he didn't want to have to landscape where he was gonna build.
Maybe us saying that we have to approve the plan is enough.
Well, what I would love to know is, what is our recourse if they don't?
We'd have to decide, do that at the time, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, or do we want to write something in here
They
that?
so they could present, plantings may be implemented in phases, in which case the planting, a timeline for each phase should be submitted to the planning board for approval kind of thing or something?
Yeah.
For consideration,
I know in Eric's case, there was an escrow.
right.
Yeah. Well, and if you look, I don't even think you need to put that language in there, because up above it already says that the plan has to be submitted to and approved by the Village of Lansing Planning Board.
True.
Okay.
I think it's repetitive if you put it down.
Okay, so plantings may be implemented in phases. How about, do we need to say in which case, or can we just say, because it's a semi, the planting plan must include? Now it's a little abrupt, I guess. Should include? Must include.
No, it must
Must
be.
include.
I would say must include a timeline. But I guess the question I would have is,
What's,
what if they don't? Do we want to write something in
well,
here
that's why
that?
she said an escrow may be required, but that's really up to us to decide at the
Listen, if
time.
you're approving it and, you're uncomfortable with the likelihood or the timeline that they present, one consideration would be like,
condition.
okay, well, we'll give it to
Yeah.
you if you give us an escrow.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's,
and
I
then
mean,
do we want to
that's-
say something like?
But that's a condition on the.
Timeline,
But that's a
the special
a
permit.
special permit.
right.
So we don't really need to say that, I mean,
I don't think we need to call it out in the law, but might be something similar to where we have a list that we're going to make
list
a
of-
special permit.
well,
condition.
that, yes, I think we do.
to add it.
I think we
Pick off
do.
the
I
things
think
that
we-
have had this special permit.
And in 20 years, somebody who's sitting at this table, would they have remembered that? Or do we want to?
I've only been here up 15, but I would have remembered.
Mike takes.
Three.
Well, you
This
might.
one I would have remembered, not
This one
every-
you'll remember because they're all recorded now. I wish lots of the other ones were recorded. Oh, boy.
Yes, I can, it was some.
Yeah, I kind of feel like we would want to say something so that future planning board members,
Well, one of the things we
Maybe
talked
even something
about
about-
for future things to do that we, at the last meeting, what do we,
Special permit
a decent
conditions.
checklist for all this. And this is what she's saying.
Yeah, include it in that checklist.
We need one, that we are forgetting things.
Yeah.
And you really do forget, you think, oh, this is, just we're dropping off a log, and you must never drop your guard.
Right.
That's the point. And a checklist is the best way, so if we do if there's any phased anything,
Yeah.
you've got to put special conditions.
Yeah, I mean, I'll play with the language, but for example, in consideration of this request, the planning board may add a conditional for planting escrow.
Ah, lovely,
That's, I think, all I would need.
yep.
Anything else on that page?
Nope.
Page 4, there was, I think the first thing really is 4A1, street trees shall be required along the front lot line in accordance with provisions set forth in this section, and you had that comment.
Street trees are,
This now seems to conflict with, the second one down.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
can't follow.
Oh, I see what you mean.
I don't necessarily see the contradiction, because it's,
Oh, the right of way,
It's,
it was the right of way.
because along the front lot line, we're not saying where along the front lot line, but in 2, we start to say it needs to be here in relation to.
Can you just combine, does it make sense to combine those two? Street trees shall be required along the front lot line in accordance with provisions set forth in this section, and shall be planted at least 5 feet behind the right of way.
So I just want to ask a question. I was reading this, of course, it wasn't at the last meeting. This sounds like it requires street trees in any situation where this, which could include, you know, some kind of residential special permit.
Yep.
And, you know, maybe the property owner, you don't want street trees or street trees that often.
So it's required in the version of the existing tree law, it's required. I mean, we had that on
That's
Lisa's
what
neighbor.
Zach had to do.
Zach had to put in
a
two.
street tree.
On that same line, well, depending on, you know, I'm sure there's some weird angle somewhere here in the village, but the village also has a program to offset the cost of some of those street trees. If it's planted, what is it, 75 feet?
You
of the
don't need
center line of the
one
road.
every 5 feet.
Yeah, it's not,
It says every, I think, what is it, every 40 feet?
40 feet.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking, I'm just visualizing, you know,
There's a view or something.
residential area, you know, like, you know, Raymond, Ohio, it's like, most of the houses don't have trees along the road. But it's still, there's still lots of trees.
I would love trees along the road.
I think we should absolutely have trees along
Yeah.
the road.
And it is a view thing, you know, some people like to see the road when they look out the window.
Move to
It
the
just,
street.
I would say with one every 40 feet,
That's the,
you have enough leeway that you can position it over here so you can keep whatever view you want. There's 40 feet's a lot of distance. And there are so many different kinds of trees out there that, you know, like, if you put in,
it doesn't have to be a giant tree.
no,
I mean, if it's in there, it's in there. I saw that when I was looking at it, I thought, well, that's, sounds like it's mandating street trees. Of course, can you have the trees like farther back, like in your front yard, and,
well, actually, that's a really good question. How far back from that front lot line is it no longer considered a street tree?
In accordance with this section, planted at least 5 feet.
Behind the right of way, yeah.
It doesn't.
That would
doesn't
beg a- and
tell
no
you that
more
one.
than-
Yeah, that's interesting. It becomes not a street tree, though, if it gets too far away.
Right, and at what point do we,
What's the definition of a street tree?
I
The silence is deafening.
don't, yeah.
Well, maybe that's where the along the front lot line comes into play.
Along the front lot line.
Along the front lot line.
But if it's along the front lot line and it's 40 feet back, is it still a street tree?
No, 'cause it's not along the front lot line, now it's back by my house.
Is a street tree,
Well,
is a street tree not a street tree?
I don't know, so what does it mean by along?
Not along the side lot line.
Yeah, or it's not on the line, it's, I don't
I
know.
mean, it's along the front lot line.
Yeah,
Are we
maybe it
overthinking,
has
are
to
we
say-
overthinking this a little?
we might be.
well, I'm thinking like more urban neighborhoods, there are trees maybe out in the tree lawn or whatever you call the portion between the sidewalk and the street, you know, those are fine. Of course, that's not at least 5 feet back, but if you have, you know, larger properties, like maybe like 200 or 300 foot frontage, you may not want, that's what, 7 trees or 8 trees that's required, which maybe you don't want it. You want to have trees, but not necessarily.
To ask for a waiver or a variance.
But on your property within 10 feet, on your property within 10 feet of the right-of-way.
Within 10 feet of the right-of-way. But 5 feet behind the right-of-way?
Well, on your property within 10 feet of the edge of the right-of-way, or within 5 feet of the edge of the, I'd say 10 feet, because 5 feet, you're still got a chance.
Within 10 feet of the road edge?
Nope.
No, you don't want
10
that.
feet of the, on your property, within 10 feet
of the
right.
of the right-of-way.
And how far does the right-of-way extend in
Every road's different, yeah.
from the road edge? Well,
Yeah.
what's like a range of,
Roads could be, well, you could have 30 foot from the center of the road, or 25 feet from the center of the road.
oh, okay, so
Which
that's
still
fairly,
gives you a little bit of
that's
like,
fairly far
distance
back.
back, yeah.
Yeah,
if you have like, say, 10-foot lanes, so it's still 15 feet in and then another 10 feet.
In some cases, you have the sidewalk there, in other cases, you don't. You have a large, like residential, you may have stormwater ditch.
I don't want a street trees one there.
Within 10 feet of,
you want-
On your property,
My definition,
I don't know about the on your
I don't
property.
like that.
no,
It's gotta be on your property, I mean,
so it's got to be
Within
from the
10 feet.
center
Because it's still
line?
your property, there's
Yes.
the right-of-way over it.
Yes,
within 10 feet
of the,
of the right of way.
or from the center line of the road?
No.
no,
And the right-of-way isn't always
Like you said, it's
from
different.
the center.
Well, you wanna play around with it and see what,
How about maybe 15 or 20 feet to give you a little more flexibility?
From the center line?
Well, Mike's suggestion was from the end of the right-of-way.
How do you know, but how does someone know where the right-of-way is?
Just ask.
Ask John.
Okay,
I mean, or we could just say, street trees shall be planted at least 5, between 5 and 15 feet behind the right-of-way. And that gives us both a front border and a back border.
or you want to say at least 5 feet, but no greater
more.
than 10?
No greater than, I would say no greater than 15.
Between 5 and 15, or between 5 and 20 feet.
having flashbacks to that greater than. Or equal to, what you saying? Yeah, sorry.
The closer we get to math, less comfortable everybody gets.
We can leave the square roots out of it.
Yeah, no square roots in this one.
Divided by the highest common denominator.
So that gives people a little more leeway, but it still accomplishes the goal of having something along the
Not too
frontage
far
there,
back.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that way, maybe you can sort of stagger the trees, too.
Yeah, so that you have one a little bit further up and one a little further back, so you get the view that you want.
I thought you wanted them in a row.
No, I'm not trying to avoid that.
No, I want them.
Them in a row, yeah.
That's right.
Okay, so this makes both Jim and Natalie happy. Natalie and Pat are in a row and Jim's are staggered, all good.
You know, in a row along the side of a,
Never know.
nice, but, you know,
Grandfather.
you see these places where they've spent a lot of money, built this big house, and then they put a big mound of dirt in it, plant grass on it, and a row of evergreen trees.
Yeah.
It looks terrible.
It looks terrible.
Okay, so nothing else there?
No.
Page 5? Well, you did have your
My
comment there about
formatting
formatting, we can take a
starts
look at that.
going
Oh, Natalie, I tried to fix that. I wanted to show you how I fixed it.
Okay.
Show you after,
Okay.
to see if that's what you wanted.
So the first one there is the no major subdivision, so we should also change that to cluster subdivision. As previously.
Where?
Where?
Oh, right here.
On page 5, under number 6, it says no major subdivision shall be approved. We previously decided to change that to cluster subdivision.
Could somebody remind me what a how that cluster subdivision differs from a major subdivision?
Cluster subdivision is basically if you take the same area, if you want to do a major subdivision, then you are limited to what that district has for lot sizes, setbacks, and everything else, so you try to fit that in that area, cluster subdivision, you're redesigning the size of the lots and the setbacks so that you can utilize more density in the area, but at that point, you still have untouched area, wetlands, all that kind of stuff can be listed out of your area that's gonna be usable. And it can be done especially for, if you take that 680 where you have a lot that has a lot of wetlands on it or a stream running through it, you don't have very much buildable area. So now you can get more density within that buildable area. See what I'm saying? Instead of putting it in that whole area, you might reduce it down to something smaller and you have more density. Where you can't, in a major subdivision, you can't change the density.
So that if it were a major subdivision, you would just have this squares of 1 acre, let's say, and half of them wouldn't be able to be built on because it's wetlands, so now they can't even develop it pretty much because it's not profitable.
You're restricted to what the district has for you for size of lots, setbacks and whatnot. Cluster subdivision, you're recreating that into something that actually works for the property.
And there's language in there too that tells you can increase it by what up to like.
You protect.
So what you're saying is this kicks
Other ways.
in for cluster subdivisions, but not major subdivisions.
Because we never know what major subdivisions are gonna end up in. They might want a cluster, a major one, might want. Or once they subdivide, they could take some of those and make them clusters, couldn't they?
They could
Yeah, or
come and
major
apply
is
for it.
mostly people just sectioning off a lot
Yeah.
into buildable
A
lots.
cluster subdivision,
not
somebody
necessarily-
generally has an idea, I
Yeah.
want to build this thing here, and I need to increase the density a little bit, and here's what the code says that I can increase that by, and yes, I want to do this, but when they come to present that and apply for the, the cluster subdivision, they also have to provide a lot more information than if you're just doing a major subdivision.
Now, the Millcroft is not a cluster,
That's
though,
not
is it? No, is it? Millcroft? It is a cluster. So the Beers one is
Is a
a
cluster.
cluster. I was gonna say, that was a cluster because he had green space that he set aside and other stuff so that he could then increase the density and have irregular lots. They're not all the same
Right.
cookie cutter size.
Okay.
For B here, we should add okay,
Ownership of the parcel.
yeah, thanks. Anything else on 5?
Ownership status, is that what we
Yeah,
said?
that was-
Yeah, ownership
yeah, since we added
status.
it on the first page, add that there too.
Maybe.
This is just the formatting, sorry, getting kooky again.
Oh, okay,
I didn't make any changes to this.
oh, okay, on 6
Yeah,
or 7.
I have the word for somewhere. That's better.
Okay, now we get into this thing.
I didn't make any changes, just formatting changes.
Except for this.
That's a comment where,
It
again,
was a
my
formatting
formatting
thing.
started not following along with me.
This,
Yeah. There's supposed to be another subsection somewhere, but I couldn't make it work.
so,
So the language is right, it just has
The
to,
language is right,
Yeah.
someone who's just, that's better at word needs to.
okay, climate change. So this isn't,
yeah, that should,
Don't
she said
need to
that should be a pair,
discuss.
yeah.
Correct.
we've got to consolidate these.
Anything else on there?
Getting closer.
Okay. Well, then I guess, yeah, if we
I'll make
get
these changes and send them.
some edits made before the next meeting, we can review that there.
Okay, so in terms of the solar law,
I'll give an update on that during the trustee report.
oh, okay.
Anything else with the tree conservation law, or is that enough to get us going?
Move
And
forward.
we have the second meeting this month, right? It's next month that we cancel
Yes,
one?
we have one like the 29th or something. It would be 15 days from today, which would be the 29th.
The 9th, yeah. Yep, okay. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the trustee report. I did not go, but I watched the recording. I tried to, and then I realized I didn't have the link, and it was too late, and I was like, well, Jody just got back, and Jody still wasn't back, but I did, I went and watched it, so, It was quite a long meeting for a whole bunch of reasons, and I thought a lot of it was gonna be the solar discussion, but that was pretty quick. So because they did agree that yes, that piece of language that we had been talking about, and Natalie suggested that they'll put that on there, because it's not just and I forget the exact word, you tell me, because it's not just like, it was a grammatical error,
Yeah.
because we're like adding a whole new thing in there. They had to close that public hearing without any decision and schedule a new public hearing, so that's.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. So let's not make any more
Need more
changes.
time.
So it's, so no more changes. But that was the big thing there, so yeah, there was some other, just like a little minor discussion about it, but that was really the substantial discussion about the solar piece of it. Other than the appendix, we did send them, so they have that, the permit, they have that now too, so they have everything.
They have everything.
There was a little bit of discussion about, again, what do we need and when to make the decisions on everything, but so they have everything they need, and,
And they have the revised Appendix J that was
Yes.
circulated timely,
Thank heavens.
so they can vote
By
on it if they
miracle.
want to next Monday. Public hearing is next Monday.
Okay.
Mike got the stuff out. So you need to send out for that, so. Chris. There was a discussion about, and this was kind of funny as I went through and looked at too, the people who are opening up Ole Ole, they had put in an application to waive the 30-day waiting period for an alcohol permit, except by the time Mike got the paperwork and they had the meeting, it would have shaved like 2 days off of it. So they approved it. There you go. And then a lot of, and then there was some discussion about the clean energy projects from NYSERDA, from the NYSERDA grants that the village participates in. So there were some discussions about, are there places that we should spend the money? We don't have to, we shouldn't just spend money but obviously they have to be clean things. So there was discussion about maybe looking into like electric mowers or battery backups or things like that. Was there a final decision on whether or not? Okay, they were gonna.
I think John was going to present more ideas at the Thursday business meeting.
Okay. And then Kathleen and Ronnie presented various reports on their stuff from NICOM, so there was a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, it was like 3 days worth of things. There were a ton of things in there.
Very detailed.
Yeah, some of them were, very specific, things about like maybe, redesigning the website or things like that. But there were two that I'll mention that kind of stuck out because I don't know if everyone's been impacted. Well, I know one of them everyone has, but the other one, so, Bolton Point has an inventory of properties in the village that they don't know if the pipe leading from where the Bolton Point service stops and into the house is lead or is copper or is something else. So they need to know that because, if it's lead, it has to be replaced within, like 10 years or something like that, I think. So I had to have them come out to my house last week and I was like, that's it, I'm gonna have lead pipes. It didn't, it was copper, so there you go. But so they have an inventory, they have a ton of houses that they know.
Into
Into the house. So Bolton Point knows where the
They've
mains
already
are.
done most of these.
Most of them, yeah, there were only a few stragglers left, like me. But, so they have to do the inventory from where the Bolton Point port stops, usually like
At the
somewhere in your
meter?
lawn. Nope, the meter's inside your house.
Yeah.
So what runs from your house out to where it connects to Bolton Point? You're responsible for everything from that point to your house. They're responsible for everything down to Bolton Point. So if they didn't contact you already via email and phone and letter, they already know about your house. Some houses were old enough where they just didn't have that information.
So if they didn't get in touch, we're
Yeah,
safe.
you're safe,
Oh,
yeah.
good.
They already have that
I
information.
think John has finished it.
I think that might just shove me over the edge later.
Probably has now that I called Bolton Point back and they came out to me.
Wasn't there some, I don't remember what year, but isn't there some year after which lead pipes just were not used?
Yeah, so a lot of the villages are really
Unless
impacted.
somebody
Yeah, newer stuff,
did
yeah.
their own
But
stuff.
like, my house on Oak Crest is older, so, and they didn't have a record of what it was.
I was wondering, like, was the date back in the 70s or 80s, or is
No,
it,
it's probably
There
even
is a
farther.
specific date.
what's that?
There is a specific date, I can't remember what it is, it's similar to, like a cutoff date they use for asbestos. It's similar to that.
So if you have asbestos in your house, you probably have one. I have asbestos.
Well, if you tear down a building after, it was 75, now they moved it to 83, don't correct me, 83, 82. If your house was built before then, and you go and you tear it down, then you need to have an abatement done, a survey done.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing, that Ronnie mentioned, because this does impact us here, is, and this has come up before, but a recent push again about, is there something that can be done in the state about zombie properties, right? So these things that just sit there and clearly nobody's gonna do anything with, because even if you wanted to, you couldn't at this point, so there was some conversation about that. Were there any other ones?
Were there
Thoughts?
any particular properties mentioned in connection with the zombie property discussion?
This was done at NICOM, so it was just a discussion about, it wasn't like an example of ones here specifically in the village.
Oh,
I think
And
people,
honestly, other
Yeah, I was gonna
municipalities
say.
have way more zombie properties than we do.
I didn't,
Other municipalities, other cities in upstate New York have far more issues with zombie properties than we do.
Yeah.
We're actually a pretty clean,
yeah, I think Ronnie even
municipality.
made that, or I thought somebody made that comment, or maybe it was about a different thing, but, compared to other municipalities, we're in pretty good shape. Were there other ones, though, Natalie or Mike, you were both there, that stood out?
Pretty much it.
There were a lot of updates from it, though, so there was.
No, the lead line thing was
Yeah.
specific instruction to the voters about when you can make the change and when you cannot, because it would be gifting of resources.
Yes.
If you haven't gone on YouTube to see it, some of the stuff that Ronnie and Kathleen had to say was pretty interesting.
It's the last 45 minutes or hour of it.
Okay,
There's a
so
lot.
that was what, a week ago?
Yep.
October
Last Monday,
7th.
yeah. Yeah, and that was it. Next item is other business.
none?
Other business.
Lisa? Okay. Jim?
I don't have anything other than, who's got trustee reports for the next?
I'll look
I
that
think
up.
I'm November.
I really thought, oh my God.
I'm November.
I forgot. And then I
I'll make
looked
sure
it up.
that I have
I'm December, I think. Oh, no.
Remember, we all switched a month? We
Yeah,
all-
because there
Yeah,
were like no
everything else,
meetings,
there
and
were no
yeah.
meetings. Are you November? I think I'm December.
It's
I
not up.
think I follow Pat.
I'll open it up. Lorraine, did you have?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I noticed this morning, when I went by Northeast Peds, that it looked like somebody was there getting ready to do some planting.
Oh,
Good.
Except I don't think we've seen
Northeast Pediatrics.
it's a good time to plant.
It's a great,
But did they ever submit a landscaping design?
Not yet.
Anyway, I noticed there were big shrubberies that were just laying there, and there was a backhoe and a big truck, and I'm like, oh, this was at 9 o'clock this morning, I'm like, oh, looks like they're getting ready to plant.
They called in Dig Safe, I know that, so we're looking to do some plantings.
So now what do we do?
We should probably see the plan.
Yeah, they never submitted the plan, like we would.
Maybe we should drop in. I don't think we saw your plan.
No, I'll take that.
They're probably all planted now, that was at 9 o'clock this morning, I didn't drive you through.
Appointment on Wednesday, I guess.
I'm thinking about some of these things in history. I know in Boston, they were gonna chop down all these sycamore trees or something along what became Storer Drive or something, and these women lay down in front of the bulldozers and stuff and saved them. I mean, it worked. I'm thinking, I guess we should run over them.
Natalie, when you're there, can you look for new dirt?
Yes, Lorraine has, well, I'm looking at the wrong thing here. Lorraine has November. Pat has-
November?
Yes,
And I have December, right?
Pat has December.
Oh. Really?
Yeah, Jim, Lisa, Mike, Lorraine, Pat. So then Jim has January, you have February.
Okay. Wow, I think I got skipped over.
You had August.
Oh, I
You jumped
did.
in.
Yes, I did. I think.
Okay.
Yes, no, I did.
Natalie, what about you?
I actually did some research into whether the board would be bound by restrictive covenants in case that weren't.
You are not. Specifically, planning boards are bound by zoning requirements, they're not bound by private restrictive covenants.
So how does, so then,
The risk lies with the property owner.
That's it.
So they can come in, they can present a plan, we can say, hey, that looks amazing, go ahead and do it, and then they should do their due
but don't you
diligence.
feel-
and-
don't you feel we have an obligation to let them know there
They
are?
know.
We've told
Oh,
them,
yeah,
They know.
no, but I mean, in general, let's say
Oh, yeah.
they didn't, let's say, we should always bring it up
If we know.
If we know, exactly. Okay.
But it's not it's not something we regularly research.
No, I didn't think that we were
Yeah,
responsible
that makes
for that.
No,
sense.
but there's a lot of cases directly on point, so just.
Yeah, Oh, good.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome.
And all your spare time? Anything else? Mike?
Just a couple things. I am working on your special permit list. I'll have a draft for you next meeting. Something that we can have in front of us,
To start.
kind of a flow chart type deal, so we can make sure we cover everything as you requested.
Make sure you add planting easements on there now, if it's not already on.
Escrow.
Planting escrows, not easements, yeah, sorry.
I spoke with, well, we were supposed to have 2 items on this, on our agenda here. One was Abru was supposed to get things ready for 680. Warren Road, they never got back to me. She did text me, or emailed me today, and said that she had found out that there aren't any wetlands on that property, but it confused her because they've been delineated as having wetlands on the property, so she didn't get back to me, so I don't know when that's
Oh,
gonna
my
happen.
goodness.
So,
It's only wet.
whatever happens, happens. And then we're gonna have, we're not gonna have it, obviously, this meeting, but next meeting, we're going to have, Borg Warner has got 2 pieces of property they wanna consolidate. Because we don't have any other language at this point, we'll go through it as a subdivision process. There shouldn't be too often.
They want to subdivide, or they want to join them?
Consolidate.
Consolidate.
They want to bring them 2 together?
Yeah, but we don't have consolidation.
No, we only have the other. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the purpose of that, I'm just curious?
They're basically moving.
Increase your area.
Is it
They're basically moving the lot line, because eventually they're going to subdivide the property, so they want part of a
Oh,
parking
they
lot
want
in.
it so they can then
Oh,
divide it up
gotcha. I mean,
differently.
I'm kind of going that, but I mean, you'll see little right now for it.
Wasn't there a piece of it up for sale already, though? Remember, like last summer or last spring?
Oh, this is interesting, because when we moved,
Oh,
I thought
it was up for
Talking about
sale.
moving jobs out of the area.
we didn't get involved with it, but the
But, yeah, I mean, originally, they extended until, I don't know, 2026, I think.
Yeah, there wasn't there some discussion about part of it being up for sale?
Yeah.
what?
The piece that was up for sale, I thought, was the piece closest to Bomax where the shell, where the conference center or whatever is in there. I thought
Oh, okay.
that was already on the market.
Now they want to combine them so they can then subdivide it
Probably
differently.
reconfigure it,
Yeah, okay.
The only other thing is, I've been busy with Taco Bell. They've moved along so quick and didn't get me the information they really needed to, and I had to put a week-long plan review into a couple, 3 days, so we've been kind of doing it as we go along, but I'm working with them on that. One of the items that did get changed on that was, we did require them to move that building out of the easement. What relatively easy, Matt Naparella was very easy to work with on that. It did involve, by moving the building, they are going to have to come back to reassess the front yard setback. I told them we'd go ahead and handle it, but that building had to come out of the easement. I mean,
Yeah.
we were talking about moving it closer to the side of the hill there, which you can't even tell.
I was going to say, we don't care on that.
Check with Lynn about that, and so we'll get that all worked out, but the big thing is, it's out of the easement now.
That's important, yeah.
And that's, they're supposed to be done in 90 days.
Wow.
Moving along.
Well, it is.
They have-
Yeah, they are moving along. And then the ole ole, what I was going to ask about, so the Board of Trustees approves the alcohol permits in our
The
building?
30-day waiver.
the waiver.
Like the 30-day waiting period, they can waive
How is that regulated? Are there certain numbers of,
permits issued.
There's a 500
Yeah.
foot law.
And then if you're more permits within 500 feet, you have to meet certain criteria as for
I was
additional
wondering how
waivers.
that went. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's all done through the state. But we have the ability to waive waiting periods.
Yeah.
They still have to have their license from the state, right? We can't just say, oh, yeah, go ahead now. So
That's what I was
They must already
wondering.
have their license from the state, I would
Okay,
have
so
thought.
it's a state regulated thing,
Yeah.
the number per
Yeah.
whatever we are.
Yeah, it takes into account like
It's
other
within 500
businesses
feet.
that have it, how close you are to things like schools.
Oh, yeah.
It takes a whole bunch of
Okay.
things into account.
It's weird, I'm clubs running, the playground, oh my goodness.
Okay.
I don't have anything else, if somebody's got questions for me.
Any word on the alcohol thing? Did that rumor being that
Oh, Cuba Medical.
Cayuga Medical has taken it over as the drug thingy? That was in the papers, I think, wasn't it?
What are they taking over?
Cuba, the Alcoholism Council building.
Oh, okay.
But Cars is gonna, I think,
Oh, it was cars, yeah.
but Cuba Health came up with the money, right?
I was wondering about that because when we approved that, or, it went through the BCA and stuff, it was never supposed to be a place where it was only to detox, not to treat with other drugs, and I'm wondering if that's still the case,
If they
and how
come
we would
in,
know that.
they would have, to if they're gonna come in to reopen that, they're gonna have to come,
Are they?
they're gonna have to come here. I need to know what use, I need.
That's what I'm wondering too, 'cause when I read that, I thought, I wonder if this is quite what we approved and what we expected to be there. Okay, so they have to come in before they can reopen to you.
Yeah, they need.
Oh, good.
I mean, they could take a chance of reopening, but I need to know what they're doing in there.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, I thought, when I read that, I thought, I wonder exactly what it's going to, the use is going to be.
Was it Ithaca Voice that posted about that?
Yeah, but you know what, we have to wait to see what they're gonna come up with, I don't totally trust what's written always, or that it gets across.
So who owns the building? Does the county own the building?
I think so, I don't know.
When they first came in, if you remember, I categorized it as a hospital.
I do remember.
Remember that?
I do, I recall.
Were you here for that?
No.
Okay.
Oh, my God, what a mess.
Because it fit the description of the hospital, and then, well, you were on the BZA at that point, right?
Yeah.
Or-
That was really, it was a bit kind of
I thought you were,
difficult.
or maybe you were here already?
Oh, you were?
Angela, really, oh my God, I get calls, I was chair, yeah.
So-
And then we tried a couple of other, I came in, he and I would go,
Special care unit.
and I said, yeah, but it could be this. Well, he didn't think so, and then he'd say this, and I'd say, no. I mean, the two of us carried on
Yeah,
something.
Lisa and I argued about, kind of find out it could have been defined 2 or 3 different.
The point is, it was all of the above, but none of the specific things. It was pretty funny, actually.
Okay. Do we have anything else? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:18 PM.
We'll move to adjourn.
Motion by Jim, second by Pat, all in favor? Okay.